All right, welcome to the first premiere Bromods podcast. I've been looking forward to these for a long time, and I really got interested in doing this when I've built some things for myself, and I just wondered if there were other people out there that did the same thing, and I know there are, and I know that a lot of businesses and Goat Pen is all about small business and the trades, and I know a lot of small businesses have started in the garage. People who have an idea, and they just decide to build it. So this podcast is dedicated to all the doers and the builders and the dreamers who have an idea in their head, and then rather than just talking about it and dreaming about it, actually put pen to paper and a welding rod to steel and build it. So excited to introduce Erik Pennington. And Erik is he's a welder and a fabricator and an engraver and a designer and a wood turner. And he's got some awesome designs we're going to look at today, awesome builds, awesome mods. And we're also going to get all up inside his head and see what it is that makes Erik tick. So welcome to Bro Mods, Erik.
Thank you. Glad to be here, brother.
And where does Erik call home?
Erik hails from a little town of Horn Lake in DeSoto County,
Mississippi. And is this, are you a lifelong Mississippian?
I am. I was literally born right over the border in Memphis, Tennessee, but as a baby moved right into DeSoto County, and I've been here my whole life.
And you love it? You love it?
I do. I really would like to, kind of get out. But see, I'm actually a U.S. Navy vet. So I did get to get out a little bit and see quite a bit of the world, actually. I'd really would like to call home either in the mountains or on a beach somewhere, you know what I'm saying? But, making it.
So you're a little bit of a sailor too.
I am.
Yeah, I was in the Coast Guard, and I spent 14 consecutive years at sea, and I would say my biggest tour was Antarctica. It was like my first one. I told all my buddies I was going to join the Coast Guard, and they used to make fun of me. I said I was going to join the Coast Guard, and I'm going to go to Australia. And there were these two dudes at the bar, like the guys that are always at the bar, and they were making fun of me, saying, "Bob, you're never going to get out of Bemidji, Minnesota." And so I
had a two dudes at a bar moment myself, but I'll tell you that one in a minute.
All right, we'll hear that one in a second. And so anyway, I joined. I went to Antarctica. I went to Australia. I come back, and on leave, I go to the same bar, and it's like nothing fucking changed. Those two guys were still standing in the same corner next to the pisser, holding their beers in the exact same fucking way. And it was like the conversation had never stopped. And they're like, "Hey, Bob, you make it to Antarctica yet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, I did. Are you guys still here?" And they look at me, and they're like, "Ah, you're full of shit." And I said, "No, look at the patch on my shoulder. It says, U.S. Naval Support Force Antarctica, Deep Freeze 97. Yeah, I went to Antarctica and I went to Australia and I had a good time, and you motherfuckers are still here." Anyway, so what's your story about the bar dudes?
Well, actually, that one happens a little bit later into my naval career. It was just kind of funny. The two dudes at a bar. These two guys. Once I was actually in Yokosuka, Japan, I was stationed on CVN 73 USS George Washington, and I was there for a while at this point too, and this was right before the earthquakes of 2012, and I did get to experience that over there. But a couple months before that actually happened, I was at one of the bars that I had frequented, and anyways, this chick had came in, and the two guys I didn't really know, but they were stationed on a submarine that was moored in to pier right next to my ship, and we were all just sitting there having a beer. And they looked at me and they looked at her. They were like, "No way!" And then let's just say I walked off and I didn't see them ever again.
Yeah. Sub. I used to make the mistake of calling them submariners, but they're submariners, is what they call themselves. So those submariners, yeah. So one of the things that I learned as a sailor, um, and I think that might have been where I started modding. One of the first things I did was I developed a chart protection film from the 3M 3000 adhesive, and then this matte film. They sent me samples from their R&D department free of charge, and I built this, just put the rolls together, and I would put those over my charts. And rather than the compass leads tearing up the charts like they did before, my charts would stay like brand new for like 2 years. And so that was one of my first mods. And then throughout my Coast Guard career, you have to learn economy of space, and you have to learn how to build things sort of in a clever way so that you can get everything to fit. And I think it was a lot of that being on board ship, and the sailor ingenuity that was necessary in order to be good at it. And they got me involved in modding. Um, did you? I mean, was your sailor life, your Navy life, a big influence on your desire to become a builder or and modder and
Hmm. I really don't think so. If anything, it gave me more PTSD than anything. But there was quite a bit of time towards the end of my career that um, before coming home, I was, and I was kind of mentally in a transitional state, and I was trying to think about exactly what I was going to do. And I had done carpentry before, and before I started actually welding and even wood turning, I was woodworking, and then that then just kind of slowly evolved to what I am today. But I would be sitting there on board ship, and I would sit there and design out like different furniture pieces to build. Have I since built them? No, but I mean, the imagination goes honestly a long way, and for the things that I guess really matter, you just kind of tend to keep going back to them, and ever since, I would then once getting home, I get on YouTube all the time, and I would see these people just building something, you know, honestly, something even simple or whatever, or even as like, a rocket stove cooker or something like that, that I have back here. Um, but I just never had the equipment or the time or the place or the setup until about 8 years ago. We moved to where we're at now, and then I was honestly finally able to just kind of tackle what I wanted to do. Um, I
so
got some really
where'd
great.
you learn to weld?
I taught myself. I taught myself absolutely everything that I did.
Awesome. Yeah, there's one of the guys that I work with a tree care training company called Academy Trained. His name's Jared Abergina. He's a one-time world champion tree climber and multiple um, Western chapter titles, but he's got the one time, and we rub it into. He's a one-time world champion, and he builds these rigs for the tree care training. We do this spar training where you take like a log, and you stick it in the ground, and then people climb it like they would, like a lineman does with spurs. And then they practice their precision cutting, and that's how arborists take a tree down. If you've ever wondered, how they do it in some really sketch situations, they don't just drop the thing. They normally climb it, they delimb it, and then they piece it down until there's nothing but a stick left, and then they drop the stick. Um, and they've got controlled rigging to bring this whole thing down, and the way that we baby step arborists to get to that point is we put them on a spar stuck in the ground and get them about 10 feet up, and even 3 feet is enough to make somebody nervous, and it's difficult to take a log and stick it in the ground. You got 15 feet of log and 5 feet in the ground, and maybe you've got a total of 20 feet of log by the time you're done, and it weighs literally, tons, and you got to dig this big hole and you got to stick it in there. And so it's a challenge to get these logs to training grounds and get them set up. And so what he did was he developed these, um, like these, it's like a giant Christmas tree base, and he welded it all together, and it's absolutely brilliant how he did it. And then you stick the log up in there and you tighten it down like you would a Christmas tree in many ways, but it's got these outriggers, and it's perfectly stable. And now you can put someone on there and they can practice their tree climbing. So he's self-taught as far as I know as well, but he's actually got some beautiful welds. Um, yeah. So you're self-taught welder. What about CAD? I saw that on one of your videos. It looked like you were using a computer-aided design, or how'd you learn that?
That one actually never quite got all the way to learn. I was starting to try it out, but as you have very quickly seen today, I am really not that tech savvy. I actually got my wife Beth doing that now, and she had since started 3D printing a little bit. We need to get her another 3D printer, and probably three more while we're at it. But um, yeah, that was something that I was trying to get started because I had a certain fab job that I had to do that unfortunately had still not yet happened. And there's honestly a whole lot of variables just in life and all kinds of other things as to why it hadn't happened yet. But I was trying to figure out how to get a more of a 3D model, uh, um, or even, you know how you go into a fab shop and you get handed blueprints for, here, this weld goes here, this gets cut here and all that. And I can read a tape measure with the best of them. But doing CAD, I quickly learned that that is not exactly my forte.
Yeah, yeah. So it was something that you were trying to learn. Do you are you going to go back to it, or?
Well, as much as I would like to go back to it, I feel like my talents honestly lie elsewhere. But my wife, and even our other significant other over here, uh, they have since taken over a lot of the electronic work. So anytime it comes to even like, the more, uh, difficult things, with computer work like CAD and stuff like that, I pretty much put on them at this point, and they've been able to figure it out. Like Beth, I'll tell you what, she is, how to put it, her superpower is she can learn anything very, very quickly. Especially if she can read about it, then she's got it right there. It's just at the point after that of, pushing hands on. And she's been very good at doing that. So I pretty much kind of leave the whole CAD thing with them. Any other design work from me usually happens either strictly in this brain of mine, or I may draw it out on
You
paper.
sketch it out? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
most of mine, I did some woodworking when I was in the Coast Guard. What we'd do is we'd put these shelves up on the bridge of our ship, and we'd build like these steamer trunks, and make the bridge kind of look kind of a classic way. So you got like this little bit of a a meld between like old school nautical and then all the new school stuff too. And so I had some fun with that, but I am not a draftsman. My mom was an artist, and she was an amazing artist, but I can't draw my name. So when it comes to that visual stuff, I really struggle with it. And I think one of the reasons I bring this up is that there are people who let their shortcomings get in their way of doing the thing. And I'm glad you mentioned that you've tried CAD. It's not something that you're all that interested in. You don't really need it. And I guess my point is, don't let that shit. If you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, "Man, I'd love to learn how to weld, or I'd love to learn how to do something, but I don't know how to do fill in the blank." Fuck it. You don't need to often learn that one thing. You can still be a builder and a creator and wing it. Just find you and be you and do it that way. And don't as soon as you start making excuses, you're going to find reasons to believe them. So
I
Um,
I absolutely agree with this. You know what? Since you brought that up, I would like to actually further that on a little bit. Not saying that I lied to you or anything like that,
yeah, yeah.
but
Go ahead.
but but so with the four wheeler here that I've been building on, and yeah, you're looking at that wild gas tank. We'll talk about that.
Yeah,
But
that's definitely something I want to talk about.
so you brought up, on, fuck it. You got to start if you want to learn. And I absolutely agree. Now, just kind of going back, a couple months ago, I had tried out a gutter hanging job. And so, okay, I don't do heights very well. And also, I'm actually a little guy, and transporting a 20-foot and 30-foot ladder straight up and down really doesn't do good on my balance. So I very quickly learned that that actually was not for me. But I did, however, figure out the instructions and went back to the CAD. It was on a little bit of a different topic, though. And although I did not design what is in my hand, I did design something incredibly close to it that was able to kind of be, fed onto or whatever. And I got a louver right here, some vents 3D printed. It's been spray painted. It was printed in red, but I got it on the front of the sheet metal work that I did on the four wheeler here.
Look sharp. And that's 3D printed. Do you have the 3D printer yourself, or is there like a maker studio or something, or a community college or tech school or something that you go to use, or where do you get the access to that?
Well, so we actually have a best friend. He grew up with me. Me and him grew up together. He is the one that actually bought this said 3D printer and is essentially letting my wife use it. We do everything here. We don't have many maker spaces or anything like that. We don't like if anybody around here locally that does anything, they probably keep it to themselves a little bit, or they'll go out to like craft fairs and sell their wares and all that. Um, Unfortunately, there's not really just a lot of places that harness this kind of maker energy or craftsmanship around here. There may be a call. There's one place that I know of that when I was a kid, I went to go learn how to play guitar. It was called Pick and Paint, and you pick guitar, and then you can learn how to paint. And I've been an artist just all my life, but again, I've always been self taught with everything I've done. I've never really had a teacher except for I can say my dad, kind of taught me a few things. He taught me the television set's an idiot box, so I kind of don't watch TV or anything. And my grandfather actually was probably the biggest influence on my maker life because we would get these old science books and like these things were seriously dated, like back to like, the 40s, on how to make like a little, you take aluminum foil, make a boat, and then you could take a little piece of a soap sliver and hang it off the side, and it'll propel the boat all around your bathtub. And little science experiments like that, and then make a radio. I got to do all of that. We made cigar box guitars and amps. We did it all, and I think honestly, I can. If I was to really, pay homage to a certain person to where my maker life and career has come from, it's my grandfather.
Hmm. Yeah, for me it would be my mom. She was a wood carver and painter. She went to Texas Tech and studied. She was one of those rodeo gals. Grew up in West Texas, the Cap Rock area, and her dad was a blacksmith. So I think she picked up, and blacksmiths still exist, by the way. There are still people who do blacksmithing, and horsemen that that work on ranches and what have you. So that's what he did, and then my uncle picked that up as well, and mom welded. And seeing her in the studio as a kid, I think is where I picked up a lot of it from, as well as seeing a lot of the engineers in the Coast Guard. And I mean, these people were multi-talented, whether it was woodwork or welding, or it seems like they could do anything. Here in California, we've got a few of the maker labs. Um, that's kind of a California thing too. I think a lot of them might be a little on the poser side. So maybe not having the maker labs there where you're at, maybe it's a little bit more authentic than what we've got out here.
Well, I think if anything, the small town life has kind of taught me, one thing, and it goes a little bit against something that my dad taught me. Um, when me and him were actually learning how to play guitar, he always told me, he was like, never teach anybody everything you know, because then they only need to learn one more thing and they know more than you. I however, I just I've always had a little bit of a problem with that, I mean, not just a major problem with that, sure, when it comes to, like, certain things when you're in competition, obviously, but when it comes to learning how to do all this, I would so much rather show anybody everything that I know plus more, because then next thing I know, 6 months, a year, or 10 years down the line, maybe I need to know something that they know,
Yeah,
And
that's the spirit of an
it needs to
educator.
be like, community instead of
Hmm.
competition.
Have you thought about being the guy that starts that in your hometown? Maybe. Um,
Well, I tried it. I tried it. So full disclosure for all of the world to hear. Um, So, okay, I do battle some mental health issues, alongside, PTSD and everything that I've kind of gotten through trauma over my life. Um, I have really bad ADHD. I get the whole paralysis thing whenever it's like, oh, I got to do this, 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 and this, and then I just can't do anything. It's quite debilitating. So, uh, gosh, I'm sitting here going off track. Anyways, I did do that when, I'm a okay, I'm a prof forgive me. I am a professional wood turner, and I do that essentially full time. However, it kinda has laxed off a little bit, throughout the last year and a half. So, that's when I really ultimately picked up welding and fabricating, only going on 2 years for that now. So, that's where I stand on that. But I have had people over here that wanted to learn how to turn wood. Maybe they would have a certain project or whatever, and I would essentially give them a little bit of a lesson and then just kind of set them free to get their project that they wanted to do done. And I had really thought very hard about this over the last couple years, and it's something that I want to do, and I still want to do it. But something else kinda came into fruition. The shirt that I'm wearing, this diamond right here actually is a symbol of my wood turning, club. It's worldwide at this point. We've been active for about going on 3 years, the Royal
hmm.
Order of Wood Turners, and, honestly, just everybody that's within that has probably Probably has put more encouragement and, more wisdom into me to figure out how to do the things that I do, even relatable to things that they don't do, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
So, it's something that I'm still working towards, but I've with the mental health thing, I kinda got a little bit of a people problem. Um, I struggle going to Walmart. If I know that I gotta go out and do something, and, like, honestly, I really needed to get a new set of headphones today, that got missed out on, but I'm kinda broke right now, so I figured these ones would work, but, and it just gets a little crazy up here sometimes, so you can
I
if
hear
you
you,
have
bro.
if you followed me up to this point and you understand what I'm talking about, then we got something that we can relate on.
Yeah, I got done with my career and ended up with the old military what do you call it? The trifecta of depression, anxiety and PTSD. And for those who don't understand, and I'm not trying to be a victim here because I hate that shit, but
Me neither.
I ride my motorcycle and I had this 1982 Honda CM450, which is this beautiful old classic Japanese bike, and it's got drum brakes front and rear. So it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop all that well. And it also is pretty quiet. And I would have people pull out in front of me all of the time. And just, when I was in the Coast Guard, there was some tours where I was a small boat coxswain, and I would take the boat out, in the middle of George's Banks at midnight, heavy seas, doing over the horizon boardings, and you push yourself to a limit, and you don't think that any damage happens, and then, after years of that, it sneaks up on you. And the way it manifested itself for me is I would ride my motorcycle, someone would pull out in front of me, and my heart would not skip a beat, and I would skid to a stop sideways, feathering the throttle and the brakes, bringing it right up to the end of that jackass that pulled out in front of me, inches away, and touch the vehicle, give him a thumbs up, let him know I was okay, and then I would go try to get gas, and I couldn't remember my PIN number. I couldn't remember my zip code. And it just, my doctor said that there was years of being frickin' on my game where I was the man and nothing could derail me. And too much of that, you overstress, and eventually you get to the point where when you have similar stressors, your body and your brain just says, we don't need to remember the little shit. And so it shuts it off, and you can't remember your PIN number, and you can't remember your zip code. And so I'd be standing there looking at the gas pump, feeling like a frickin' idiot, but not being rattled at all from the accident, from the near death experience. So these things sneak up on you. And I do safety training in high risk industries like tree care, and you don't have to be in the military. You don't have to be a combat veteran. You don't have to be, a firefighter. Too much stress over a long period of time, can cause those the nerves to just sort of get frazzled, and it'll sneak up on you. And as a safety trainer, it bugs me because people go and they do work in a high risk environment, and they don't realize that their brain is shutting off when they have certain things that puts them under stress. And as a leader leading crews out there, you need to be aware that sometimes you got that guy on your crew, and you don't know what's going on in his head. You don't know what they've been through. And, they may respond in ways that seem silly to everybody else, but it's just how they respond. So anyway, a little bit of a rant there. I hate the whole victimhood mentality that seems everybody's got a thing these days, and they all want to jump on TikTok and tell you about it. But I'm not a fan of that. But I am a fan of taking care of yourself and knowing what your limitations are. And if you're in a leadership position, show some grace and give people the benefit of the doubt and see what's going on. So I think I'd like to take a look at some of your builds here. We got you dancing right here. So look at that. Let's take a look at some of your builds here. Your dancing is fine, but I think your welding is better. Which one would you like to start? Which one would you like to start with?
Dealer's choice.
Well, let's start with the wood turning. So this right here, I saw this for the first time, and I've never turned wood before. But it's amazing that you can spin something fast enough so you don't feel the edges when you pull the chisel out. So tell me what this is right here, what you're making, and give us a lowdown on this. Beautiful, by the way.
So this particular video, unfortunately, the audio got pulled from it. It was a poem by David Mullet, I think it was, about it was about trees and competition. And so what I'm pointing at there was a tree that actually fell down through a storm, and it fell on my neighbor's fence, right across the street. And so I had actually went and helped and harvested just a little bit of the tree, and I was laser engraving it there. I turned it, laser engraved it, and I, gave it to him. It was like, hey, here's part of the tree that fell on your fence. Um, it was just a little bit of a habit, and I felt, I want. I've always enjoyed making these videos, and except for I think the real essence of this particular video is now lost because that poem is not being, said with it.
So what's the poem
But
again? What's the poem again? You got me interested here.
David Mullet, let me actually do a
Y-
quick. Yeah, okay, you got Google right there.
Yeah, I'm
All
just
right,
gonna Google it here. David
yeah, let's see if we can find it.
David Muller. Did
Mullet, Mullet, I think it was. I can't
Mullet,
exactly remember too much.
and it was a
Poem
poem
about
about what?
trees, trees.
David Aldred, tree poet.
No,
Can
no.
you remember one of the lines from it?
I really need to give me
Yeah,
1 second here. You just keep on
I'm
talking there, sir. Let me see
I'm
if
gonna.
I can.
I ended up sending you down a rabbit hole here. You look it up, and
I'm gonna use my AI here.
there you go. There you go. So, what kind of wood is this?
That that is Bradford pear actually.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, it's
Uh,
beautiful.
it is beautiful. It is unfortunately a rather invasive species, however. Oh, okay. So yeah, I found it. I found it. I I missaid the name. It is Douglas Mullet. Malloch. And I
Douglas
think
Mullich.
he yeah.
Yeah.
And look up the poem Good Timber.
Good timber. Well, Google knows where it is. Poem Good
If you can
Timber.
find an audio to that, I would love all of our listeners to hear that because it's just a beautiful poem.
Well, let me give you the
Yeah,
audio.
that's it.
I'm just going to go. The tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and light, what stood out in the open plain and always got its share of rain. Never became a forest king, but lived and died a scrubby thing. The man who never had to toil to gain and farm his path of soil or patch of soil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. Good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger wind, the stronger trees. The further sky, the greater length. The more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow. Where thickest lies the forest growth, we find the patriarchs of both, and they hold counsel with the stars, whose broken branches sow the scars of many winds and much of strife. This is the common law of life.
I have goosebumps, bro.
Then this is the part where we do the coffee shop clap from the 80s. Beautiful. So tell me, what is it about this poem that that rings true to you? What is it that gets you?
Well, I found it by accident. Literally through doom scrolling. I found it one morning. And that is actually after listening to it is what inspired me to take a limb off of that tree and, you know, turn the bowl that I did to give to my neighbors. It wasn't only the act of, kindness, but I think also, something about, whenever us as humans, we go through something, such as trauma or whatever, even as light of what trauma actually happened, like the fence barely bent down a little bit, like we were able to shove it back up and it was good. But it wasn't really, that mattered. It was, you know, so the trauma that I talk about, I'm not gonna lie to you. When that tree fell, I heard screams, and, like, these people were outside, and I heard them screaming as it happened, and it just I don't know, it scared me. I jumped up and ran out and was trying to make sure that, everybody was okay, and I quickly looked outside and saw that, everybody was indeed okay. I was like, "Okay," you know, and, you know, not that it's really, that's a traumatizing event or anything like that, but the fact that it did happen, and I was able to do this, for them, it has absolutely nothing to do with the poem, not gonna lie to you. Um, but I think, whenever it does, come to life, especially as a self-taught maker, as someone who has taught myself everything that it is that I do that is my livelihood, strong trees, they grow with, sometimes without that wind that they need, without the nutrients that they need. Sometimes you gotta go without, to go further.
Yeah, the line
It
2.
sounds a little contradictive, but, you
Well,
know,
the
it
point is, and I think on line the second stanza, the man who never had to toil to gain and farm his patch of soil, who never
yeah,
had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. To me, what this says is that uh, you need to embrace the struggle because the struggle is what builds you. The struggle is like um, it's like the energy that goes into to making something. Life is dirty. Life is hard. Birth is ugly. Death is ugly. And through it all, um, that struggle is one of the things I think that makes it beautiful. And uh, if you're the unlucky man, I think is not the one who doesn't have everything. It's the one who uh, has everything and doesn't
yeah.
get to benefit from the joy of dealing with shit and dealing with the struggle. So
I probably did miss your point a little bit there. We're just gonna blame the ADHD.
so I have
But
a quick story on poems. One of the poems that I read right before joining the Coast Guard was Alfred Lord Tennyson's Merlin in the Gleam. And the one line that I always remember, and I'm sure I'm remembering it wrong, I think is the final line from the poem. And it says, "O young mariner, down to the haven, call your companions, crowd your canvas, and launch your vessel. And ere it vanishes over the margin, after it, follow the gleam." And so that was an epic poem about the gleam, which was Camelot, the gleam, which was the spirit of King Arthur and his court in Camelot. And then Camelot fell, and Merlin chased the gleam across the country. And right before he died, what he did was he found a mariner looking out at the ocean with longing, and he passed it on to that young mariner, and he said, "Your turn." Basically, that's what that poem is about. I love it, love it. So
I'm gonna have to read that whole poem.
yeah, it's an epic poem, so it's a little bit longer than others, but it's still a good one. All right, so you do some engraving on there as well. Now, is that something that you have a laser engraver? What do those run?
So that particular one only ran me about 250 bucks on Amazon. I then took some extruded aluminum rails and I built that lift system that you see it on.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, because the beam that it has on there is not like all your traditional other laser engravers where it has to be so close to the object or whatever. I can have it as far away as possible as I want, and I can focus the beam down.
Okay, so what you did was you modified this,
I did
and
not.
no, well, you
I just
did on
simply
the
built the lift. It
yeah,
came
you
like
built
that.
well, that's the mod right there. That's the mod right
Sure.
there. And because normally it would just be like a fixed focal length, right? And so you've got it adjustable here.
Well, it actually did come that way.
Hmm.
I didn't add anything to the laser itself. It's a small cantilever laser, so the surface area that it can actually engrave is very small, about 6 inches by 6 inches, something like that, 500 mil by 500 mil.
So what does the
Uh,
table do then? What does that allow you to do then?
well, so okay, if you see the table that the bowl is sitting on, that's just a small platform that I built, just kind of for the zero height, and then the table that's on the laser itself goes up. And I mean, it can go up and engrave down essentially, gosh, I don't know what really the focal length is. I haven't really maxed it out, but I've been
So
able to engrave inside of bowls and everything.
okay, so this allows you to do like different sized objects. Does it change the size of the engraving when you lift it up or not?
Mm-mm. It does
Okay.
not. Whatever size I have in the program is the size that it engraves.
And what do these normally run?
I really couldn't tell you. That particular engraver is a Nehe 3 NEJE 3 on Amazon for about 250, $300, something like that. I mean, now of course with the tariffs that we got on us now, and I do believe it is from China. It's probably a little bit more, but that's around close. It's a fairly inexpensive one. It's about, I think, anywhere between a 5.5 to a 7-watt laser. I was even able to engrave a cup, through powder coating on it. So it's been a very versatile tool in my shop. I use it for just about just about anything that I can engrave. Anything
And
that has wood on it, whatever, I'm gonna engrave it.
and do you do a lot of contract work with this? And the reason I'm asking is this sort of a differentiation thing where a bowl is one thing, but to be able to put like a monogram on it for a customer, that um that could be a differentiator there and maybe set you apart. Is that what you do with it, or is it mostly just for your logo, or what?
Well, I do just about. I like to how to truly explain it. I like to think that I can do anything as a maker. So, especially with the engraver, one of the things that one of my buddies was saying after he got his engraver, he was like, "Oh, dude, I'm kind of scared to engrave a wood turned pen." And obviously, I wood turned pens. It's probably one of the simplest things that I can wood turn. I can make a pen in a matter of minutes. Um, from a block of wood.
You mean a
And
ballpoint
anyway,
pen?
he was scared to engrave it, and that was the first thing that I engraved with this thing. I was like, "You know what? Like, I don't like to have fear when I'm trying to do anything. Have I failed? Absolutely. But have I learned from the failures? Of course. I like to say sometimes we win, sometimes we learn.
Yeah.
The fail word is kind of strong,
Yeah,
I mean,
fail forward, they say.
yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, my face ain't scuffed up or anything like that. I can always try again if I need to.
So you
you know?
said pen, you said it with an accent. You said pin. Is it a pen, or is that what like a ballpoint pen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Forgive
Little
me, I am Southern boy.
So, yeah, so this thing is intricate enough that it could, or detail enough that it can do an engraving on a ballpoint pen. And you do do you do logos and things, or not logos, but monograms and things like that for customers? Or I'm just
Not
asking
really.
because if I was, thinking about starting a business and I did some wood turning, or I like to do woodworking, and I was asking myself, what could I do to maybe make my stuff a little bit different? This might be the thing to do there. Just trying to pick your brain, seeing how you're using it.
It is absolutely, I think, a keystone piece of machinery that every maker that has anything to do with wood especially should have. Now, if you're just purely a metal fabricator, and you really want to throw the logos and stuff or whatever, I would invest in a fiber laser. And unfortunately, those run at a minimum of about $5,000. So I don't engrave in any metal with this thing. But for anybody that does anything with wood, or, in some factors, I think even like some epoxy work or whatever, you can maybe get away with some things. Um,
Yeah,
there's
what
a
all
bunch of
different
different things.
materials can you engrave with this?
Wood, acrylic, um, now if metal is powder coated, it can definitely etch the powder coating off. So you can get on Amazon and you can purchase, cups that are essentially just, black, powder coated,
Yeah.
all the way or whatever. Get your little roller that hooks up to the laser. And I mean, you can make these things, make cups all day long. Um, you can take, you know what, somebody that has absolutely nothing but maybe a saw and this engraver can do is you can go get you a 4x4, block of wood, non-pressure treated, of course, you don't want the chemicals, and cut up a bunch of cookies, or go get a branch out of your yard,
Hmm.
cut up a bunch of cookies. You can sit there and make ornaments, you can make coasters, you can make anything you want,
Yeah,
literally.
so
I
I
mean,
mean, even something like some interesting branches like from like a diamond willow or something like that, and you could just engrave that up. Okay, and so then you would put that on like an Etsy or like uh what have you, or make mahjong tiles for a game or whatever, or dominoes or um yeah.
I
Rocks.
mean, the
Can you do rocks?
imagination
Will it engrave rocks? Sorry,
um, with rocks, I don't really know. That's actually kind of, I've never been asked that before, and now I'm actually curious.
that was one of my
So,
first things I got as a kid was a rock tumbler. My mom got it for me. It was one of those gifts where it wasn't about me, it was about her. So my mom got me a really neat rock tumbler for herself, and then she used it for her work.
well, there's a thing, whenever you're on a surface area, so, the laser engraver works off, one plane. Otherwise, it would need to have, like, the 5 axis, ordeal or whatever to properly operate correctly, which they do have. They're not cheap. This one does not do that. But I have learned that even with some partially curved surfaces, I can, even on a flat surface, it'll do just enough.
Hmm.
So I would turn a lot of gong mallet handles for a customer for deep space soundscape. Um, my man, he actually puts these gong mallets together, and I am one of like two wood turners that actually makes the handles
And
for
you
him
say
to, gong mallet.
deep space soundscape, is that his business or?
That is, yes, that is his business.
Okay. Shout out to Deep Space Soundscape. Is he on Instagram?
It is definitely on Instagram.
Okay.
Um, if you have anything, if you like, gongs, sound baths, stuff like that. I believe he's even majored in music. I mean, he's a hell of a musician, man. I mean, I've seen him play all different kinds of instruments and everything. But yeah, for as long as I've been with him, and I've been with him for a couple years now. Now I'm in Mississippi, he's in New York, so we haven't even met before, but we have been essentially partners in this business of his for going on more than 3 years now.
Mm.
And it's been very, very rewarding. Um, especially as a wood turner, I've been able to, you know, scale up my wood turning a little bit. Now, for where it's at now and for where it's going, there is definitely a line that I'm eventually going to have to cross where I got to spend some money, but that is okay because I mean, hey, new tools, new toys.
Right. So he makes these mallets for um like primitive instruments like drums and gongs and things like that. Is that what you're saying?
Not really drums, more like, gongs and even, sound bowls,
Mhm. Okay.
uh, stuff like that.
You could make one of those gavels for the judge, and then if you ever
Uh,
find yourself in trouble, you just bring that in and 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 maybe present it to him. Say, "I'm not trying to influence your decision, Your Honor, and but here's a really cool gavel. Please don't use it." You
I
know.
could send us a little bit of a different direction. I'm not gonna mention who I made it for, but one of the one percenter motorcycle clubs, I have made the president a gavel with a striking block
Sweet,
for,
sweet.
and that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Unfortunately, I'm not going to disclose any details. I feel like that is not exactly for me to do. But but coming from that life before, though, so because I've rode motorcycles for honestly about the last 10 years. I have since sold the two motorcycles that I had to get a vehicle that I needed desperately. But I am about to be working on probably not. I actually got a chopper, a 9 foot long chopper sitting on the
Really.
table over here that I got to build. But it needs everything, and it needs frame rebuilt and all of literally everything.
Well,
So
that's a good segue. We've done some wood turning here. Let's go to one of these the quad build that you're working on. Let me flip through some and see if I can find. Okay, so this is it right here. Now, is this um is this a custom built frame or is this a modded frame that was a quad and then you added on to it or modified it? What's the lineage here?
if you look up Tao 125cc ATV, and that's what it is.
Okay. So the
I got it for
frame,
free, and I saved it out of a backyard.
so it's a dumpster save. I have a I
Essentially,
something
I
I have
I
a
had to turn
coffee.
the engine over because it was stuck.
Oh, okay. I have a coffee maker that I pulled out of the dumpster. It's worth about $1,200, I think, but works fine. Um, and all right, so tell me about this thing. Let's watch a little bit of the video. Feel free to tell me to stop at any point, and uh, definitely want to get to the gas tank. And all right, let's take a look here.
Okay, that's right. So that video was actually me showing off my new hairdo.
Oh, okay. See, you snuck that in there. Hang on,
Snuck it.
let me find another one that. Here we are.
Let's see.
Which one? This one right here?
I can't see all of them.
Oh, okay. It looks like I don't have. Uh, here we
There you
are.
go. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. I had to make sure I could pop a wheelie on it, but this is when I was getting the gas. So I had just made the fuel tank, and that fuel tank is essentially two separate tanks, hence the two filler necks, at half-gallon per side. And those are actually whipped cream bottles. And
Like
for
the
full
whipped cream
disclosure,
bottles.
no, I am not the one that those were brought.
So whipped cream, like the ones that they have at Starbucks.
I don't know. I know people use these things to get like a 30-second high on.
Oh, okay.
It's like a hippie drug or something.
And what is this stand that it's on?
Oh, okay, that is a piece of angle iron. I had to take the tires off, and I didn't really have a stand, so it's on a piece of angle iron and uh, four 3-inch by 3-inch square blocks, something like that. No,
So is it's just resting on it? But it looked to me like like it tilted back, like the whole angle iron
It
thing.
did. It did. The four wheeler is actually clamped to that
Okay,
angle iron
okay.
block. So I didn't hurt anything. Everything was fully safe. That was all planned. All for the video.
And tell me more about the different. What do we do? Do we go forward on this or?
Sure. Yeah, that was one of those videos that I did. Where it plays all the way through and then it ends with where it begins.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that old the
So kind
trick.
of one of the content creator grab bag.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You put the so it looks like it loops.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Um, all I was doing right there was I was getting the fuel tank mounted into position. I had to weld up the mounts, and then I also had to re-weld the mounts for the seat because that seat is completely aftermarket. And I sent it off to upholstery to have diamond pleats put on it with
Hmm.
the purple gator skin around the back. So the entire bike is going to be red, white, and blue all over. And the gas tank, I want to hand paint stack rockets on.
So what kind of rockets?
I don't know, something that you would see hanging off the bottom of an aircraft.
Okay. And so the handlebars those aren't original. That's
Oh no, those were bought off Amazon.
yeah. And the suspension is all original.
The suspension is all original. All the sheet metal work I did myself though.
And what was the inspiration for this? Are you looking for something kind of Mad Maxy? Or are you looking for something pod racer like, or were you looking for something?
Well, so if you were to actually go back on my Instagram page a good little bit, I couldn't tell you the exact video just yet. You can see some other parts that I had made for this four wheeler. And just the fact of, building the handmade parts has really, I don't know, it really did a lot for my creativity, creative side on it. I just kind of went with the flow on it. Um, I had to completely rebuild the wire harness and all that, like that shifter, all handmade. Even the part where it hooks up to the sleeve on the deal that actually shifts, it's only drive, neutral, and reverse too. It doesn't have gears. But that part is hidden where whenever these four wheelers came out, it's just a little bar with a little knob, and I'm just like, that's boring. And then the foot brake on the other side is completely handmade. Um, I don't know. I just kind of started in on it and just kind of kept going and didn't want to stop.
And you said you're going to make it red, white, and blue, like patriotic looking.
Red, white, and blue all over.
Awesome.
Man, I
And
gotta ask you a quick question. Okay, so right there
yeah,
you can see the original gas tank on it too.
yep, that's the original gas
Yeah,
tank.
see how ugly that is? Can I
You know,
take an
it's in the
intermittent
eye of the
real quick?
beholder. I don't think it's that ugly, but it's not as cool as the one that you built.
I also did the exhaust.
This right here with
Yeah.
the scrambler look to it.
Yes, that part was kind of already there. I really honestly did the muffler in bit there.
Let me see if it comes up to it.
I think that was it.
I mean,
Hey, can we take a pause for like 1 minute?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I will be right back. I gotta
Yeah,
run aside for just a second.
you bet.
All right.
Good. Yeah, I needed to use the pisser there as well.
You go through enough of these, you drink beer.
All right. So I've got got a pretty better view of the girder. It's like a beam that you've got it sitting on, and then you've got it clamped right there. So that's the way that works. I work on my
Yeah.
own motorcycles, and I've got one of those little, I don't know. It's sort of a cheap little lift that it's got wheels on it and you roll it up underneath and then you kind of tilt it back like a lever, and it never works well.
Um, does it look like a very small rising two-railed platform?
Um, it looks like, I don't know, it's like aluminum and it's got like these little hooks that you pull it down underneath the rear axle, and then it like balances on the frame, and then you pop it down, and then it kind of stays in place. But there,
Oh,
it's for smaller bikes, and not that my bike is all that huge. I've got a 750 Honda Shadow, and it's a little too much bike for it. I need to get another one.
usually those are for, like, track bikes,
Yeah, yeah,
I think. Yeah, 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 like crotch rockets and such.
yeah. All right, so let's take a look here. So this is an automatic, right? You said it just got this. This isn't shifting. It's just forward, reverse, and neutral.
Yeah, 1 gear.
Yeah, I had friends that made V8 motorcycles, and those were all automatic too. 1 gear,
Right. Like, I eventually, I'm gonna change out that engine because I wanna switch gears.
Yeah, it's part of the fun. Part of the fun there.
Exactly.
So this is you're making the wiring harness.
Yep, looks like it.
Yeah, I have a '78 GL 1000 Goldwing that's in pieces. It was one of those uh, project bikes, but right now it's just in pieces. And I took the wiring harness apart and decided I was going to rebuild it. Um, and now it's one of those things that, I look at it and I'm like, man, I just don't want to finish this thing. I don't know. Maybe I'll end up selling it to someone for a couple $100. So this is the quad, and the vision for it is I want to get to the gas tank here, but it's going to be like a red, white, and blue thing. And let me see if I can find a video with the gas tank. So this looks like the beginning of the gas tank build right here. All right, so let's have a conversation about this gas tank. What's the plan with this?
Oh, well, essentially now the plan is to paint it, because it's done.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that on the painting thing. Um,
Oh,
what's your feel? See, I love plain steel, and I love the look of it. And this is this steel or aluminum?
it's steel.
Okay, so it's stainless steel. It may not rust, but the 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 steel that you used on your grill, that metal will rust, right? It's not stainless, right?
Yeah, even this isn't stainless. I will have to eventually, so on my cooker, on the rocket stove portion of it, it generally stays hot, but on the smoker box, I have it seasoned on the inside, and, eventually I was thinking about, painting it with some high heat paint or probably even getting it powder coated, but then also I got a coal cooker on the back, which, yeah, I mean, the nature of these cookers, I mean,
Mhm.
even excuse me, even painted, the metal will, flex
Yeah, yeah.
and it'll break it up real quick if you're not careful.
Yeah, and
However,
the the bare metal is beautiful too.
it
Um,
is, it is. So, because the fuel tank is actually not stainless steel and it is mild steel, where the blue is, I'm still gonna grind that off. I wanna grind it all to grinded steel, and then I wanna hand paint, like missiles or rockets or something like that on each of the tubes, and then clear coat over that.
and do you plan on riding this thing?
I definitely plan on riding this thing a little bit because I got another little fun thing I wanna add to it too. I'd like to, build an off-road trailer that can go with it that pulls another cooker.
See, I was thinking like something right along those lines. That this reminds me of something. Speaking of small town America, where everyone gets together for the 4th of July parade. This looks like something that the clever motherfucker in the small town uses to pull something else during the parade. That's what it looks like to me.
Exactly what I'm going for.
I love it. Love it.
Ultimately, for how my creativity goes is, kind of like, with the whole, teaching somebody everything you know. If I build something that everybody likes, I would love nothing more than to send it out into the world. I would love nothing more than to not have it anymore. Sell it to, the right buyer, somebody who will, showcase its, what it does and what it is and about, properly,
Hmm.
and then go on to the next project. That's kind of where I'm at with it. But that's actually you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the 4th of July, it's pulling something that it probably shouldn't. Um, I think probably one thing that I ultimately want to do with this build is when it's all said and done and has the new engine in it and everything, because the engine that's in it now, I'm not going to keep. I don't like the just forward neutral and, reverse.
And
I
what
like
size engine in it? Is this like a 125 or something?
it's a 125. Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, sure, it'll do probably 30 miles an hour, but it's going to be screaming at you the whole time. And the exhaust that I got on there that I made, it ain't quiet. But what I really want to do with something like this is build it up, and I want to take it on a trip. I want to take it, not necessarily, so extreme off road, because this thing is a very small four wheeler, but
Hmm.
probably more of a length type trip, like do, 300 miles on it or something like that, over a course of like a week, or something, make a full trip, a full journey out of it, really let it, you know, earn its keep, before sending it out into the world, but that's only because it's really my first motorized build
And then you're
that
gonna
I've done.
document it? You're gonna do the document the whole thing and on TikTok or YouTube and
So this is all truly, theoretical right now. I got a buddy who has the exact same four wheeler sitting right behind this one that the engine is quite literally locked up on. It will
Hmm.
not do anything. So it's just a rolling chassis at the moment. I want to build an electric one, next, but I don't know what he's going to do with it yet. Um, so that it's kind of more of a goal, type trip that I want to do. I really don't. Unfortunately, having a lot of friends around here, I got quality friends, but it really falls into like the 3 or 4 category. There's not many people around me out here. So I mean, granted, I do live in a suburban neighborhood, but I don't know. It's a little weird out here. Not many people just go out the door and talk to their neighbors or anything.
so that would
As
be a
much as
fun
I would
trip.
like to go back to Pangea that way, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so you're thinking about taking it on a trip and doing some stress testing. Um, there's one trip I always wanted to do. I'm gonna have a little aside here. I saw once in Australia, I think it was Australia, people went on these camping trips where what they did was they pulled a small barge with their boat, like like they take it in side tow, and then they would just go up and down the river and tie off to the shore. And so it was like camping. It was like an RV, and it was like a boat trip, but it was just a frickin' like pontoon barge with a tent on it, something that Tom Sawyer would, and Huck Finn would be on. And I think in that movie, like Chocolat or whatever it was, and the Johnny Depp's character was sort of uh, a hippie sort of whatever they're called. What are those Romanian gypsies. And anyway, and they were doing that too. And ever since I saw that, I'm like, that looks like a fun trip right there. It's kind of low tech, and it doesn't look like it would cost all that much. You could just get a boat and a pontoon barge and just go on a road trip on a river, and tie it off, and then you camp out on the barge, and maybe camp out on the beach and go into town and get a burger. It sounded like a good trip to me. Anyway.
Man, it sounds like some bro mod stuff right there. Wink, wink.
That's right. That's right.
I would
So,
gladly. Where are you at? California?
yeah, we're in California.
My goodness, you are all the way across the country from me.
That's right.
But honestly, I mean, there's so much in life that I feel like has, so much to offer us, and wanting to do, what we do, it I mean, I would gladly, give up however much work and time that I need to, because something else about me, I don't work for the money. I work for what it is that I do. Now, do I need to have money to put on the table? Yeah. But can I tell you something? I am probably making less than probably the minimalist wage of the minimum wage. I don't have, I don't have a lot. I really don't. I've been able to build up a lot is where I really lie. Um, over the years. Now I did have a good job that helped, start this entire shop up when I did, but once I lost that, I've been in entrepreneur mode, you know, for the last going on 4 years, so it's definitely had a lot of, rockiness and stuff like that, but
Well, you're a rare
I've come to
breed.
learn that I've come to learn that, chasing the money like everybody else does, I have a system. I have a system that I am incredibly fortunate to have, and it's not me, like, living off of anybody or, anything like that. It's just, you know, it with my family, they are able to give me the rope or whatever to be able to do what I do. Now I do bring money into the house, you know what I'm saying? I am not saying that I'm the main breadwinner or anything like that. It is definitely hard. But because I'm able to do this the way that I'm able to do this, it's really brought so much joy into my life, and I've been able to express that joy and even bring my family into that joy as well. That working the 9 to 5 simply you can't do. Um, Ever. Even if you're just working at a convenience store or if you're the head honcho over an office or whatever, my life is very different from them. I mean, I live minimally as possible, I mean, now, like you see me drinking a beer right now, nobody bought this for me. I bought this for myself, you know what I'm saying? So it's something to it's a different type of lifestyle, I guess you could say, where it's still tied into the everyday
Hmm.
lifestyle, and I don't
Where
really
where do you want to see it go? What's like, if you could have one dream for to be able to keep doing what you're doing, but gain more success out of it, where would you like to see it go? Like in the wood turning and the welding, or
honestly, I would like to see it build into not really seeing where it's gonna go, but more in seeing what it can do. I would like acreage. I like land. Excuse me. I would like to start a farm. I would like to be able to start the things that I can give back to the community, you know. Um, you can maybe call it philanthropy, whatever. Except for I'm not sitting here just giving money. You know what I mean? More like, knowledge, philanthropy and all that. But on top of it, I want to live simple. I don't really care to have the millions of dollars. I don't care to have the expensive cars. I drive a '99 Dodge Durango that only had one owner before me, and this thing runs like a top.
Oh yeah.
None of the windows work, but I don't care. you know, it gets me from point A to point B, and it just about as fast as I can want it to. Um, I'm able to do the things that I want to do. And I feel like, chasing a lot of these, everyday considered nomenclature and commodities that everybody, finds in their lives that it's almost like you're born into. I, it's weird. It
Yeah.
really is weird because I still live in the same life, the same boat that most everybody else does, but I'm able to do it differently, and
So
I
if
think that's really what encourages everything that I do.
if you got the land, would you make it into, like, I'm trying to think, are you just looking for a place for you to live and uh and have a good quality life, or were you looking to for the land to be, I don't know, like agritainment or um something else? What, like, is there a Kickstarter idea that you have that you could run and maybe get this land, or uh
Well, I think to answer that question is honestly, it's kind of the same dream that a lot of us Southern boys have is, we always, want to have a little bit of land. Personally, what I truly want is I would like to be able to have 100 acres, and with that 100 acres, I would have a very small little house, because I don't require much.
mm,
I would have, my workshop and all that, that would obviously have to be larger, but I would like to take this land and be able to cultivate communities with it, have, a part completely, maybe on the other, side of, the whole acreage or whatever, and start like, a tiny home village where, I mean, I can go in and build these things, because I love building things, let's face it. But I always wanted to build almost like, a village that is self-sustaining. You don't need to have the outside world to be able to go throughout this life in this world,
mhm.
And I'm not religious by any means neither. That can be a whole different topic for a whole, another conversation.
Yeah, and
Um,
you lean a little libertarian too, right? So you're not, a communist either. So
I'm definitely not communist at all. I mean, now, do I think now if we want to go political, we can definitely go political.
we don't
Um,
we don't have to
you
do
see the
that, but
American flag back there. I'm pretty sure
yeah,
I have a MAGA hat hanging up
the
back
point
there too.
I'm making is that we us liberty loving people um also recognize the importance of community. And I think a lot of times, a certain side of, we'll call it the left because that's what it is. They get us wrong and they think that, we're all about being selfish. And that's just, I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth. And what you're describing in, in explaining the ideal life for Eric Pennington is you're giving window to the fact that you're a builder and you build things with wood, you build things with metal, um and I think what we're getting at here is the essential nature of builders and makers is to be creative, and building a community is just another example of a way to put the creative juices to work. So I don't think it's a stretch. I don't think it's a stretch at all. Let's take a look at this grill here, and then I want to ask you some questions, kind of philosophical questions, and get inside your head a little bit. So tell me about this grill. You've actually got a name for it, right?
The Z20.
And what is the history of the that name right there?
Well, so okay, this build actually started off as two separate builds. It started off as I was building a mini grill that was just going to be a mini grill. And then I was also building a rocket stove that was just going to be a rocket stove. Well, the mini grill, with the way that I built it, had a few too many sharp corners on it and really did not need to stay on the ground for safety purposes,
Mm.
might I say. And so it really needed to be up in the air. And I was like, this thing is just too small to be a mini grill that's, podiumed all the way up in the air. Well, it was a funny story because one day my dad's best friend, Ed, had poked his ugly face up through that window right there. And he came in and hung out with me for a couple hours. I wasn't expecting him at all. Excuse me. And anyways, we were sitting here looking at this thing, and we were talking about all kinds of things. And I had the rocket stove that you can see right there on the front. And the mini grill essentially is what the smoker box is coming off of it.
Right.
And then the coal grate cooker is, behind all that. And so, we were taking a look at them and he was like, yo, why don't you just combine them exactly how it is, right there, except for without the coal cooker, without the racks, without the wheels and the flag and everything. Now, where the flag actually is, a TV is supposed to be, but I need a range hood first before I can make that work. But that's still a work in progress. Right now, it's essentially a finished product.
So so this is like a tailgate thing, like full on with the TV. So before you go on, explain to everybody a little bit about what a rocket stove is. And I was looking through your IG. You're friends with a guy or a company that makes them, right?
Yes, you're probably referring to Shice on Smoke.
I think so.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they're a big account. I don't think they know who I am.
oh, okay. Um, what what is the whole how does this work? There's got to be some thermodynamics or something in here, that gives the rise to the name rocket stove.
So, thermodynamics is exactly correct on this factor. So, the 45-degree pipe that you see there has a fuel door on it, and that's where you put your dry wood. Um,
Okay.
your dry wood goes, it goes down at a slant, and let me see if I can get this on the camera. Okay, so and then it's burning right here, and then literally shooting all that heat straight up, because then your parallel, your flat one at the bottom, you got a dampener at the front, and also at the back, you got another little fuel door that you can pull out that has like the grate, the coal grate, and everything where you can, an ash pan, all that good stuff. Um, but if you think about heat, where does heat go first? It goes up.
Mhm.
And so the reason why they call it a rocket stove is because it literally captivates that exact, um, you know, bit of physics, with a fire, especially a hot fire. So it can be, you know, 500 degrees right here at the clump where all those pipes meet, and be, right at, 475 degrees right up at the top, and then, gets, cooler as it rises. You can throw a pan over that.
So
Now for smoker, go ahead.
this right here creates a Venturi effect from the heat rising in the air. I'm just riffing here. And then that draws air down through this like like the dewatering equipment that's used in the Navy, where you use it with a fire hose. It creates a Venturi effect and causes suction. And so that causes like this rocket action. Is that what's going on here?
Essentially, yes. That is actually exactly what happens, because if you were to get a camera face down into that tube, it almost constantly, well, it's square tubing, so it's not just sitting there spiraling, but you can almost see the heat, as it's, being pushed upward, because of that. Yeah, absolutely. Now, for the smoker box to work, a pan actually has to be over top of the rocket stove, and that is a little bit of something else that I am still trying to, figure out,
So
eventually
it
add
it
to it. I want to
deflects
add
the
them.
heat up into the smoker box here.
Yes, yes, it will. And I want to add on top of the rocket stove to just be a permanent griddle top. Uh, but I kind of have to take that tube and spread it out, if you know what I mean. But once that happens, though, yes, it absolutely will heat up that smoker box. I've had it just over 500 degrees off the rocket stove alone, and then there's the coal cooker right there.
Sweet.
America,
Yeah. And
and
cast
yes, it
iron.
does. Yeah, made that part too.
Yeah, I saw you slipping those in there. See this right here, I look at this and I just think the steel is beautiful. And that's one of those things that um I've always wrestled with. You get the steel looking clean like this and you're like, I just wish it could stay like this. But it
I wish
doesn't.
they could stay like that.
It's like when you get a dog and it becomes it was a puppy and you just wish that um in the tree care industry, they've got something called tree growth regulators, and they're hormones that you add to trees, and um, and it prevents the tree from growing rapidly. So they use this around power lines. One of the best ways to buy some time before you have to put someone at risk and go trim the tree again. And I've often thought if they had like dog growth regulators where you could just give it to the dog and it would stay a puppy longer, then that would be cool. But it's also cruel and a little odd. Anyway,
Maybe
cast iron. I'm a huge fan of cast iron, and I'm embarrassed to say I grew up my whole life using it, and I'm embarrassed to say that I just recently discovered that it is in fact non-stick if you treat it properly. I've always seasoned mine, but I've always just used oil with it and never really cared to fry an egg without oil on cast iron. Didn't seem like there was a point to it. And then one day, after having a really beautifully seasoned cast iron skillet staring at me, I'm like, I wonder what would happen if I dropped an egg on it. And so I crack an egg on it, and the little edges curled up, and it started to slide around on the top of it with zero fucking oil. Slid around on the top like an air hockey puck. And I'm like, they are nonstick. And I guess I never really believed it. And that's why I'm a diehard cast iron skillet user my whole life. And just recently discovered that they are in fact nonstick if you treat them right.
yeah, you gotta definitely keep them treated. That particular Dutch ovens still has not been used yet. I bought it to, get this build, done and all that, and I do very much plan on using it. Um, if you ever want to really cook some good food in a Dutch oven, a cast iron Dutch oven, look up Cowboy Kent Rollins on YouTube.
Cowboy who?
Kent Rollins.
Cowboy Kent Rollins. Shout out to Cowboy Kent Rollins. This is for you, bro. You probably have more followers than me right now. So, Cowboy Kent Rollins, we're giving you the shout out. Like and share this video.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I've been following him for a very long time. Definitely a very large account he is. I think he's also been on a Netflix show. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it was like a barbecue cook off or something
Mm.
like that. I didn't really watch it. I know he's on there, but it he explains how to do, probably some of the most elegant cooking, especially in just a Dutch oven and open fire. He does this one thing called 2-ingredient biscuits that I really can't wait to try. You definitely want to look them up for some 2-ingredient biscuits and just anything Dutch oven.
We'll definitely do
It's
that.
amazing, and everything he makes just looks, oh gosh, like you think about fine dining, and you think about a really fancy restaurant, and you're going in with a suit and tie and everything, and no, no, no. I'm sorry, what I
Oh,
think
I've
about
seen this
fine
guy.
dining is a cowboy. That's right. That's him right there.
Cowboy Kent Rollins.
That's
He looks
right
like
there.
he looks a little like Gene Hackman right there. Is that Gene Hackman, the guy who died recently?
Probably.
He does look like Gene. Sweet. I'll have to look him up. So we've got the grill here, and the last one I wanted to take a look at was, let's see, real quick. You were making uh, these, like UFO looking things.
Oh, so with the UFOs, yeah, that was a little while back. That was about a year ago, actually. I actually have a hammock that stretches out in my shop from this back wall to the wall that the phone is backed up to,
Mm-hmm.
or not really backed up to. I'm literally sitting in the middle between these two walls. But I got a hammock out here that I made up, and I stayed out here for a solid week. The temperature felt just right, and I don't know, I was feeling very, oh, how to explain it? Just very creatively blocked, and I didn't know what to do. And I was like, you know what? I had made up a UFO, and because also I machined the brass too. I got a metal lathe that I machined the brass too. Um, and I just started made I made about maybe 10 or 15 of these things, something like that. And it was just fun. It was just fun. And then also around that same time, I had started collecting yo-yos as well. I got about 30 different yo-yos.
And you
I'm
make the
all
yo-yos yourself as well, or?
I did that one that you saw, I did make. I've only made one. It is completely handmade, where even it's got what is considered a transaxle on the inside of it, where the string, it's like a bearing, but
Right,
it's
right.
not a bearing. It's a sleeve over an axle.
Yeah, and
Um,
as the other way of doing that is to have the string loose at the bottom, but with yours you can tighten the string and then it spins on the axle, right?
exactly.
Yeah. I can yo, but I'm not very good at yo-yoing. So, yeah, kind of I can go down and that's about it.
Yeah, no,
Um
I know stuff like that. It's really a lot of fun when you go unresponsive and all that. But that's I can go into.
and then finally we've got Bloopy right here. Um
Blue.
yeah, so
Who's
I'm here. Bloopy is Bloopy is the bonfire pit. So
yeah.
tell me a little bit about Bloopy.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through a little bit of a checklist. Just kind of bear with me here. All right.
Mhm.
Circa 1990, we had what was called, it was an ocean phenomenon that NOAA picked up. And it was this sound that sounded like an extremely enormous creature that they had labeled the blue. And if you remember, they did come out with an illustration that is essentially just a very large fish with a mouth that's just completely round, looks like it can swallow a city or something like that. And so that was really kind of my main gist on it. So okay, before I made this particular fire pit, I only had one more of those big washers left, so I had to make them a cyclops. So it's a cyclops blue phenomenon. I gave them a dorsal fin and gills to kind of give them a sharp, look.
Mhm.
The Pikachu tail that then ends into like a scorpion tail that is, hand shaped hammered metal. That is just a chimney, and the smokestack it works amazingly when this thing is lit up. And
This
well, he
the
looked very happy before I was done with him. So I had to give him some legs that look like a pit bull and throw him on a chain.
Mhm. And he's not, yeah. You got to watch out for him. You got the
He,
kids
he,
walk.
he, he's ready to go for a walk. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah. He's little
So
Monsters Inc. vibe going on, I think.
a very Monsters Inc. vibe. I've gotten that a lot. Um, Now, if let me explain Bloopy just a little bit though when he's on fire. So
Yeah, I'm trying to
His
find the video of that. I'm gonna scroll
Yeah,
down here.
his you go ahead. His eye not only lights up, but he shoots fire out of his mouth like a dragon. And then at the back of the dorsal fin, it'll shoot fire out of the back of the dorsal fin and even outside the gills. It's just purely amazing. And then, yeah, there's all the UFOs that I've made there. But then the chimney stack at the back, it going through that tail, it will send up a stream of smoke that is so solid. It's oh gosh. I mean, it'll send that up and then it'll just be on fire and it's just awesome.
So there's like some thermodynamics going on with him as well. Here's one. So this is some sort of a
That okay, so that one of the first fire pits that I made is actually a miniature fire pit, and that is a miniature version of the fire pit that I made. We call it the Johnny Five. Um, and that's just the very small version because we don't really have a backyard here. I have a very large side yard. We don't have a fence or anything, so really not a lot of privacy.
so
But I can
it's
come out on the front porch and have a fire.
so it's like the easy bake oven of fire pits.
Yeah, except for the one you're looking at there is literally the miniature version of exactly what it is. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Let me
That's the larger version right
that's the
there. We
bigger
call
one.
that the
Okay.
Johnny Five, and that middle piece right there is just used to stack your kindling.
Oh,
Yeah, there you
okay.
go. Yeah,
Sweet.
and then you can pull that out once it's all good, fired and hot and everything, and you can have you a fire that lasts an hour, and you ain't got to sit there and babysit something for no 4, 5, 6 hours or anything.
Right.
Have your little fire, drink you a beer or two, enjoy your front porch, and be done with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I gotta find there it is on fire again. There's Bloopy. There it is. So he's the fire breathing dragon. So it's coming out his tail, it's coming out his nose, out his gills.
Seriously, that fire pit, everybody has told me I cannot get rid of it. I have been instructed not to sell it.
See if we can hear
And
them.
I have been told that because I've even I've been offered like hey, would you sell it for $1,000?
Really?
Absolutely, absolutely, I'll sell it for $1,000. No, Eric, you cannot sell this.
Just make
Okay, so we
another
got
one.
Bloopy. If I can ask any and everybody listening to this, I need this little creature right here made into a plushie. That way we can ultimately get Bloopy out in the world. That is an ultimate goal for me right now.
So how much does it cost to make a Bloopy?
Well, it costs 2 propane tanks, some sheet metal, some grinder disc, and some welding wire and time. And it probably took me about maybe a total of 10 hours to make Bloopy all the way. And there's one of the ones that won't let me sell Bloopy. Yeah,
I don't blame her.
right there.
I named it.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, in all fairness, she actually did name it.
But if someone were to offer you $1,000 for it, you'd probably take the money, huh?
If somebody
You can always
still
build
offers
another
me
one.
$1,000 for a rusted out fire pit that's named Bloopy that looks like it is, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But
I love you.
I think ultimately, I know how to make them again. I'd much rather make a couple more of them, and I really would like to make a plushie or like a stuffed animal out of it. It's a character. Bloopy is a character that needs to be recognized.
There you go. Make it into a children's book. The Adventures of
Oh.
Bloopy.
Okay, so that might be a little scary because in its illustration, the chain is 1,000,000 feet long. Bloopy itself is about 500,000 feet long itself also, and about 30,000 feet wide.
The what bloopy? The real bloopy?
Yeah, the real bloopy. If bloopy was real.
Oh. So
I have
he's
quite the imagination, if you can tell. I'm an only child also.
Well, I love it. I love it. I can imagine sitting around it and does it make a noise with all this the flames licking around it, or like a rocket stove probably has a particular sound to it?
I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like, it sounds like a regular fire. I guess you can say the crackle and the pops are a little bit more defined
Mhm.
because it's an enclosed fire.
Yeah.
And you can look on Google and you can find all these weird fire pits all like this all day long, but there's only one Bloopy, and I am very proud of him.
Well, I would think a person could make and sell these on Etsy. Definitely. And even if you just get them made in China or
Don't get this made in China. It'll probably burn a hole through it.
Probably.
Because this is not Chinesium metal.
Well, I love it. All right. So we're going to go into a lightning round here. And I'm going to ask you some questions and try to get all up inside your head. This is shop life. And I see you got a nice shop there. I'm embarrassed to say that my shop when I was like in work or at work was much better organized than my garage is. But there have been times when I have been super organized, and there's a certain philosophy I think that people have when it comes to running their shop. So I'm going to ask you some questions here. What tool do you have that you use that feels like an extension of your hand? Is there any like one tool that just fits perfectly? I know tree guys are going to say it's their chainsaw or their handsaw, but what is it for a wood turner or a welder? Is it a chisel, or what tool becomes like an extension of you?
Well, so if I may mention a couple of them,
Sure.
because I do so many different things. Obviously, as a welder fabricator, I do not like grinders. They are scary. I got 3 of them.
So when you say grinder, do you mean like like the handheld grinder with the discs that explode when they get too hot?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm scared of them too. Yep.
But I wouldn't say the grinder is my extension. I would honestly say that that the welder whip is, because whenever I drop the hood, all the bullshit stops. I don't hear anything around me, and I just get there and sit there and get to glue metal together. Whenever I'm wood turning, definitely my chisels. They're I generally like to get them a little bit, kind of made to me. Whatever, I'll redo the handles and stuff like that, and they're definitely an extension of the arm. Whenever wood turning, you take a piece of wood and then you spin it at 1,500 to 2,600 RPMs, and then shove a sharp piece of metal into it. Sounds a little scary, maybe a little sketchy. Well, it's not to me, Um, and then probably for my keystone tool for this entire shop has got to be my laser engraver.
Really, back to
It's
that.
probably one of the cheaper
It's
tools too.
I wouldn't have thought it would be that high up on your list, but
It
that's
absolutely
interesting.
is, because I use it for just about every project that I do. If it's an all metal project, I will figure out something for that laser engraver to add its little stamp to, just because it engraves so nice and intricate and perfect. And
So that was
people like me, that it's nice and it's nice.
so that was another one of the questions: is what tool do you love that people might not know about? I think you answered that with the laser engraver. What is your go-to shopping spot for tools? Are you a like a Snap-on guy, or are you a Harbor Freight guy, or are you a Craftsman guy? What
Well, I think it depends on the person. Okay. So let me just kind of throw a small scenario up for you. All right. So we're looking at a cell phone right here. Okay. None of my cell phones have ever been broken or anything like that. I'm always very incredibly careful with them as much as absolutely positive as absolutely possible. Um, Now, unfortunately, I cannot say for the one that is actually recording this because this $30 piece of shit fell about 2 inches and busted the entire screen.
Hmm.
And never in my life has that ever happened. Seriously, this only happened like 2 weeks ago for the first time in my life. But I am one that is very, like, I will use my tools. My tools will get used. They will get the fuck beaten out of them, if anything. You know what I'm saying? But I take very good care of them. Like, I don't like if I used my drill, I'm sitting here, going at it, going at it, going at it. I'm not gonna just throw it on the ground. I'm gonna set it down nicely because I paid money for it and I feel like it deserves the respect. Same thing for a wrench. I'm not just gonna throw it on the ground, you know? It doesn't matter if it's a snap-on wrench or a Harbor Freight wrench. They will each do exactly what it is that you need it to do if you take care of them.
So is there one particular brand or place that you go to shop, or?
Not really. Honestly, a lot of my tools that I've bought either come from Home Depot, Harbor Freight, or Amazon. I have very few tools off the Snap-on truck. I love my Milwaukee brands, so I mean, I'm not, trying to just buy, the cheapest or anything like that, but, all of my lathes, both Jet 1221s, came from Amazon. My bigger wood lathe came from Harbor Freight, and then I even have a metal lathe that came off of Amazon as well. Um, my my big bandsaw, my joiner, those came off of Amazon. My drill press came from Harbor Freight. My big contractor table saw with the cast iron top and extension wing and router in the wing and everything all came from Home Depot. Um, all my toolboxes came from either Home Depot or Harbor Freight. I mean, seriously, I don't really know what the whole gist is in getting, just purely name brand or purely the most expensive. Now, I do got some that are, the name brand or more expensive in here, but everything that I have in here, I have seen in other shops and I've seen completely beat to shit where it's literally not working anymore. But yet my tools here are still serving me 100% day in, day out without skipping a beat. And so it really depends on the person. It depends on how, they treat them, how you maintenance them and everything. Do you leave them out in the yard? Do you got a shop for them to stay in? And all that. There's so many different variables that can, make these things last.
As an OSHA trainer, one of the things that I have to constantly remind people is that you have to train your employees how to use hand tools, and it's shocking to people to discover that you can actually get an OSHA violation for failing to teach somebody how to use a wrench. But if I think about all the times I've been wrenching on something as a shade tree mechanic, and I was using the wrong tool for the job, and say it was an adjustable wrench, or I grabbed one that was metric and I should have been using standard or vice versa, and it looks like it fit, but it doesn't quite fit, and then it breaks free, and then your hand is moving at 100 miles an hour or whatever, and the next thing you know, you got pieces of metal jammed in there and bruises and almost broken hands. So tools require training and they require maintenance. Even your frickin' wrenches do. So here's a question. What is the... Go ahead.
Forgive me for cutting you off there. When it comes to wrenches, there is something that a lot of mechanics, I don't think, understand. You cannot leave your wrenches soaking in oil and expect them to have a long life.
Explain that.
It doesn't work that way because there's been so many mechanics that I have, worked with and, sure, they got top of the line tools and stuff like that. And I'm sitting here coming in with Harbor Freight stuff. Next thing you know, we're on a job and their tools are breaking and my tools are working. Why is that? Because I clean them. I don't let them stay oil soaked, and honestly, when it comes to the quality of the steel that, excuse me, mm, excuse me, us here in America have been getting, over the last 40 years. And this is when we're even going into, even back into the political spectrum onto where we're actually getting this steel. It's not the best and it's not very hard. So you got to think about on a microscopic level, there's got to be pores, there's got to be openings, that oil goes in there and it's never coming out,
Hmm.
and then think about your tools getting hot and then they're getting cold in the winter. Metal expands and it
Mhm.
contracts, and so my true belief is that if you do not leave these tools, like on a lot of things, having oil like on cast iron and stuff like that, or on your drill press bed or on your lathe bed and stuff like that, that is absolutely ideal to have. But on the tools that you're putting impact on, it's really not, because anything that has to have impact on, if it's oily or slippery,
Mhm.
well, we all know what happens there.
Yeah. Yeah, people don't realize that steel is not the way it used to be. If all you need to do is like work on a Japanese motorcycle from the 1980s and look at the bolts, and then get some replacement part that looks like it's OEM, and it might even have. I mean, it might even be an OEM manufacturer. It's not the same steel, and not even close. So here's another question. Here's one for you. What is your favorite shop smell?
Oh my gosh. So there's actually a wood that my gong guy sends me. I am not sure what kind it is, but every time I turn it or cut into it, it smells like pickles.
Picklewood. Huh.
Pickles. Yes, it smells like a dill pickle, and I love pickles. Like you can hand me a jar of pickles, and I will not eat anything else. I will annihilate it. I can do the same thing with olives and all that good stuff. I don't know. I just love them. But I think especially whenever I would turn, and I get those real strong scents, like from walnut, poplar, or even this, supposed picklewood. I don't even know. I really wish I knew what it was. Um, that's probably my favorite. I really do. I gotta say, I do enjoy, smelling the metal dust.
Mhm.
And, all whenever I'm running a grinder all day, I just get that metal-esque, that metal musk or whatever, I guess it is. Um, but definitely my favorite is when I cut up that special, uh, pickle wood, whatever it is.
So what's your
I wish I knew what it was.
well, someone will have to Google it. What is picklewood? It sounds like something you call someone you don't like.
Yeah, man, it sounds like an insult. It sounds like it could be an insult, "Oh, bless your heart,"
What's your biggest shop pet peeve?
Gosh. Oh, yeah, yeah, this one's sitting here looking at me right now going, um, okay, it's gotta be these chairs that I'm sitting in right now. I cannot stand these fold-up chairs being in here. Now, it's unfortunate. Like I said, we don't really have a backyard or anything, so whenever we, wanna come out of the house to hang out and stuff like that, we generally gather here in the shop. And I have no problem with it, especially if I'm not busy or anything. I'll clear an area off. Everything is generally on wheels. I can move, a space out, and we'll sit there, hang out, have a good time. maybe drink a good couple beers, maybe drink more than that, whatever. And I'll come out here the next day and be like, yeah, I know we did this. I got to move the stuff out. But it's when these chairs don't come out of the shop when they are supposed to. I guess, like, they're that okay, it's like, "Hey, Imma come in and sit down right here," you know what I'm saying, "have a chair." "Okay, cool, just get it out of here when you're done." It never gets out of here, and then it's in my way. I don't like things in my way, and everything seems to be in my way, especially these motherfuckers.
Yeah, I hear you. Sometimes it's like people don't think that the space is all that important to somebody else. Um, but it bugs me sometimes when people put their life in front of yours such that in order for you to live your life, you have to clean up their mess or you have to move their stuff to get at at whatever it is that you need to do. Um, so let's move on.
Definitely, that is definitely kinda hitting the nail on the head, probably a little, harsh for what I would like to, say for especially, my people around here, like I
Right.
said, I don't have many friends, so whenever I do get to, clear an area of the shop out, have some bro time. We'll sit here and, crank the YouTube up and just sit here and sing and not have any care in the world. Like, those are the moments that I look forward to the most. But when I wake up in the morning and I come back out here and I gotta clean all this shit up, it's like,
Yeah.
dude, really?
So why do you think why do you think it is we're going to move on to build philosophy and style here? Why do you build? Why do you feel the need to make things?
Well, every time I go and buy something, I look at it. And then usually 9 times out of 10, unless it's like, an electronic coffee maker, some other, crap like that or whatever, I'm probably sitting here like, I can make this myself. I don't know. It almost I almost have this overwhelming feeling of, and not to sound arrogant, when you're the smartest person in the room, and I'm just like, I know I have all these different skills. Like, okay, let's say it comes to HVAC or plumbing. Absolutely not. I'm not gonna touch it. I don't know it. I never wanted to know it, and I'm okay with not knowing it. I am gonna let somebody else take care of that for me, you know what I'm saying? Um, but, like, you know, I I I don't know. I don't like being considered, really a consumer because just, if I need a desk, I can build a desk, you know? But if I need a computer, I can't exactly just build a computer. However, do I have the knowledge base to get all the proper materials that I need and then build it? Unfortunately, that's where my problem lies, and the answer is yes. So, it's a give or take. It really is a give or take. I I don't know. I don't know. It's an overwhelming feeling. It's almost like, when an inanimate object is talking to you, but it's not really talking to you, you just get this overwhelming feeling about it. And that's what happens when it comes to looking at something that is nothing but in here. And then now I have that overwhelming feeling to produce it.
Do you think machines or objects have souls? Do you think like a motorcycle, do you think it has a soul, or is the soul that it has just sort of a reflection of the individual that
It
works
is
on it or
okay.
owns it?
There you go. You put it right into words for me. A machine can absolutely have a soul, but it's got to be the individual to put it in there because from Buddhist teachings, everything is empty until it is made full by something else. Generally, human or whatever, like take a motorcycle, for instance. It's nothing unless you have, the machinery to build the motorcycle. You got the metal to build the motorcycle. You got the energy and the oil that is coming to it, and then you got the person actually that built it. That motorcycle is nothing. It's conditional. It doesn't exist until you put your energy into it. And that right there, I think, is my ultimate answer to that very question.
Have you ever read the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
I have not.
Great book. It's about a father and his son that go on a road trip in a motorcycle, and it's mostly kind of philosophical in that maintenance of a motorcycle is a lot like things in life. And so there's a lot of those sort of references. Great book for people who haven't read it. Highly recommend it. Let me see here. What is one thing that you would love to build, but maybe you don't think you have the skill to do it, or maybe it seems too big and so you don't do it, or maybe it's too expensive so you don't do it. So maybe another way to rephrase that question is, if you had all the time and all the money and all the skill needed, what is something that you would want to tackle and build?
Well, there are many things, and many things that a lot of people can consider as a consumable item. And that is not what I would ultimately want to build. Like, I want to build cars, I want to build motorcycles, I want to build all that stuff. But ultimately, going back to the community that I was talking about earlier is probably the ultimate builder project for me. Going to building a life for not only myself and my people, but even for others to be able to come in and contribute and be able to build themselves, you know? It like that I think my own, like, in layman's term, village.
And it's like finances that's in the way, because it sounds to me like you've definitely got uh, the skills and the right attitude and everything to make something like that come into a reality. And who knows? Maybe you could do a Kickstarter, start something. Who knows? Who
If I
knows?
had $20 million, I bet I could start a village that could sustain well over 100 people
Yeah,
and
yeah.
go on even further from there and then be able to continue without further funding is kind of where I'm at. But that would be, thinking about it, 20 million, that is actually quite a large number. I bet I can
That's a
do it
huge
for
amount of
less.
money. I
I
bet
bet
you
I can do it for less.
easily. What you need to do is find a way to generate the revenue, and then the revenue sustains your village there. Maybe sort of an artisan community.
Well, here's kind of the other part about it, though. It's more of a thought process for other people to take on too. Um, one person can build a village, but the village is what makes the village. You know, an idea can never be killed. You know, it can only move on. And if a village could be built, then I feel like even more can kind of expand out and quite drastically change the way that we live our lives, as humans, and take us from a consumer point of view, from a 9 to 5 point of view, to actually back to living underneath our proper circadian rhythm and doing things in this life to which we are put on this earth eh, to do without a system, you know?
Yeah, it definitely seems like we're caught up in a rat race,
Oh, oh,
uh,
oh gosh, that is all it is, a rat race.
and and people value um, consumerism, and there's so much stuff that comes out of China that, and it's not just China. I just use China as an example because they manufacture so much and they're good at it too. Um, that I mean, it's just crap. There's no permanence to it, and there's something to be said for something that's cheap and disposable, but uh, we have choices. I mean, you can choose the non-stick skillet that is, it's going to flake off in 5 years and you can't use metal on it, and you'll end up throwing it away. Or you can spend $30 or even $15 and get a cast iron skillet and give it to your, your great 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 grandchildren. And definitely a lot of people, regardless of where they are on the political spectrum, get a little caught up in the whole consumerism.
Sustainability is what we need to get back to. We used to build things that lasted, hundreds of years, if anything, and, um, there's another guy that I follow, General Sherman, or 3D printed Ford parts. I'm not sure if you heard of him.
Mhm.
He actually had made quite a very good point. So another skill that I've been wanting to pick up is actually pottery throwing. But what outlasts metal? What outlasts glass? High heat ceramic. And we can make, and coming up through these, through the age and the centuries and everything, this is how these, other civilizations have been able to tell their stories, is by, these different ceramics, different potteries and stuff like that. It's quite, it's quite the rabbit hole to get off into. Well, maybe not really, but sort of. Just if you do any type of intensive thinking, it can be. Um, but something as simple as hand thrown pottery, but then done a certain way, can make it last thousands of years longer. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, there's something to say about, being able to manufacture a lot of these cheap products and stuff. And, like with China, they're a manufacturing nation, which honestly is not really a good thing in my opinion, but that's, something for somewhere else. But like you said, it is one thing to be able to make, a bunch of these things and, pump them out, because the world has, quite the large population. We're looking at 9 billion people on this earth right now, um, or 8 billion or something like that. It's one of those two. Um, but everybody then loses sight, and focus on what really matters, which is sustainability, or which is, um, the whole, um, what is it? The whole psyop where, you turn 18 and then you got to get kicked out of your parents' house or whatever. You got to go off, do it on your own. And then you have kids and then they turn 18 and then boom, they're separated off. What happened to keeping the family together? And I'm not talking about no stupid shit like incest or anything like that, but keep your family living together. That is how you build generational wealth. There's now a thing called new money and old money. You can clearly see which families did which, you know? And I mean, I don't know. The whole new money, factor to me really doesn't make a lot of sense, because sure, I can come out with something that can make me a lot of money or whatever, but is that going to sustain to my grandchildren or my great, 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 great grandchildren down the road? If it doesn't, then what's really the point?
Hmm. Yeah, I think maybe one of the reasons people build things is it feels like you're a little bit more in control, and maybe haven't completely sold out to the consumerist culture. And it's a little bit of an illusion. I'll just take, I made this pizza oven out of a Weber kettle and a convection fan and a banjo burner. I'd be willing to bet that absolutely everything that I used to build this thing was probably from China or some third world country. I wasn't buying it from, I didn't make them. So it's not, there's an illusion of sustainability there. Is it really sustainable? There's a spirit of sustainability there, but I'm just kind of fooling myself if I think that convection fan, which was probably made in China, is better than because I did it myself. All it is it's still a convection fan that was made in China. It's still a banjo burner that was made in China. Maybe the steel that I got for the pizza steel, was made by an artisan and cut from some plate. But there's something about doing it yourself that, whether or not it is in fact more sustainable and more honest, it feels more sustainable and it feels more honest. And there's something to that. And like, my family was Mennonite. They came from Missouri. My grandfather and Uncle Ed broke from the Mennonites and went to work in the salt mines, and then purchased the inventory of a store that was passed over by the railroad in the Oklahoma Territory, and then built a small empire in a small town. And so growing up, I always had these stories of things that had a certain amount of permanence to them, that felt more sustainable. Things like cast iron skillets. And I think there's a spirit in these things that is appealing. And whether or not, in fact, you are more sustainable, whether, in fact, you are more genuine, when you build something, there is sure as fuck an attempt to be. And I guess that's one of the way I feel about it.
And the same thing, going back to what you were talking about, does your machines, does your tools really have a soul? I mean, it goes to the sustainability of, how you treat them.
Mhm.
You treat them well, like okay, you know how you're never supposed to put an impact drill on a chrome socket.
I was
You,
not
you've heard
aware
that,
of that, but
right?
it sounds like something I should have learned.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm just gonna give you the real quick field here. All right, from Harbor Freight, chrome sockets generally break under impact. I worked at a place called Ground Support Specialist where we built from the frame all the way up these de-icer trucks to de-ice aircraft. And I cannot tell you how many times I've had to run an impact on a socket, and I didn't even have impact grade sockets. I had these chrome sockets from Harbor Freight. And would you believe that even after now we're at year about 7 or 8 of me having these things, not a single one has broke, bent, or flexed or anything.
Hmm.
I never tossed them around when I got done with them. I didn't leave them soaked in oil when I got done with them. I didn't just leave them in the dirt or anything like that. I put them back up. Cleaned them off, and that is supposedly the direct representation of me putting my soul back into my tools, by simply taking care of. And it is it's very widely known, at least especially around here, never use Harbor Freight chrome sockets on an impact. And I'm like, well, I'm the only one that's ever been successful with them. So what are y'all doing?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's all how
respect.
you treat it.
Yeah, it's respect. And the word respect, actually, there's a root in the word, the same as spectacles, which means like to see. And so respect, if you truly want to talk about what respect is, um, it's it's seeing somebody, it's seeing something, uh, and then allowing that vision to uh, to inform you on how to behave. Um, and so when you respect your tools, you're seeing them and you're taking care of them. And a little bit of your soul, a little bit of who you are, perhaps gets imbued into them in the same way that a little bit of Ferrari's soul goes into his designs, and a little bit of Carroll Shelby's soul goes into his designs, and a little bit of Prince's soul goes into his music. And I guess where I'm going with this is that there is a lot more art out there than we think there is. And you can treat things as art or approach them as art that you may not think of as being art. Like business is art. Building a community like you were talking about is art. And I hear people, say the problem with America is we just don't appreciate art enough, or we don't appreciate artists too much. And what they're really saying is that, I'm a particular kind of person and I consider myself artistic. You don't like me, therefore you don't like art. That's the syllogism. But it's ridiculous because if you look at the United States, fucking art is everywhere, from the automobile to the food to the music to the television to the clothing to the hairstyle to
Hell, they're making up new kinds of
yep.
what's
Come
that?
on.
This theoretical art or something like that. Dude drops sand out of a bucket, it falls, and boom, there you go. I'm sitting here like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean it may not be your bag, but my point is that art is a thing, and there's a lot more to art than just like, and I'll air quote here, art. And
Well, expression.
explain that.
The expression that you put into whatever it is that you are creating.
And that may be your soul. That maybe call it creativity. Yeah.
And I really think that it should be, considered as, a widely renowned, deal. But unfortunately, I truly think that art and artists have been a little bit denounced because of, like, somebody hangs a banana on a wall with duct tape and it sells for $5 million. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Some of it
Like,
seems like it gets called art, but there isn't any real artistry in there. The other thing about art is it it's a form of language in that it's an abstraction that carries with it a message that it's almost impossible to put into words. Like you could try to explain how you feel looking at Starry, Starry Night by Van Gogh.
that's my wife's favorite, by the way.
It's a good one to have as your favorite, but it's almost like you're missing the point. Like an artist, like an art teacher that says, explain to me in words what you see in this piece of art. I'm like, that's like missing the whole fucking point, because the whole point of art is it replaces language in a way, and we tend to think in terms of language, and it's hard to have a thought without English. It makes you wonder, how did people think before we invented language? But
Music.
yeah, I mean, all of it, all of those things that is art, is that there's so much more in there than just what you're looking at. And this is true whether you're making a bloopy or whether you're making a Ferrari or whether you're making a Starry, Starry Night or, an omelet. There's a lot more between the words than there are on the words themselves.
Yeah. You were absolutely right. You were absolutely right. And there are times where I gotta stop myself because, I think about maybe a month ago, I was watching, I was sitting there doom scrolling, what I call it. Um, and I come across, this one page, whatever, and like the buckets of sand, Now, okay, in full disclosure, I actually think the buckets of sand one was actually kind of cool. where, dude had, all these buckets full of sand and then he pulled the plug on the bottom one and then they all fell and the way they fell or whatever. I actually enjoyed that a little bit. I enjoyed the way it was. But here's the thing. There was another clip of this. I don't know if it was a dude. I don't know if it was a female. I'm sorry. I only believe in the two sexes, so I'm not giving no they or them to anybody. No offense either. But whatever it was sitting there just slapping ink or whatever on a page. And like the paper was even not staying still or whatever, like they were moving. It was just a mess, like a literal mess of just black ink right there on themselves, and then whatever on this paper. I mean, it looked like, I guess whenever you're done with it, it looked like the image of something that you would see at a Rorschach test or something like
Yeah,
that.
some Yoko Ono shit going on there.
Yeah, yeah, and like, they're getting a place, and that they're getting a spot in a museum. They're getting a spot to do their theatrical live action art, whatever. And I'm not gonna just give quotes, to give quotes. I truly think this one is kind of bullshit. Other theatrical arts, I fully think that there's so many different ways of expressing oneself. This one literally looked like you're just throwing shit around, what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you're sticking a banana to a wall. It's like, hold on a second, what are you really doing here, Like, I mean, I see so much other people doing so much, maybe not doing much else when it comes to action, but adding more color, adding a certain motion, maybe trying to take a little bit of the randomness out of it, yet you're still getting the random chaoticness in it, but you're controlling an aspect of it. And if you have zero control over the art that you're doing, how is it really art over just making a mess?
Yeah. It could be purely random, but that brings up an important question. And this has always troubled me ever since it popped into my head. There's three things that we don't understand through science that seem like we should be putting all our efforts towards them, that are really kind of fundamental. One is consciousness. We don't really understand what it is. The second is a definition for life. We don't really know. We don't have a definition for life, and that's a working. We have some working definitions, but there's always some they're non-examples, or there are examples that defy it. And the third one is what information is. We don't know what information is, and we can say information is words on a page, or information is mathematics, or information is DNA. We can point to artifacts of information, but the information itself appears to exist somewhere in the ether, like the thoughts that are in my mind right now. That's an example of consciousness, and there's definitely some information in there. You could probably take a look at neurons and, chemicals and synapses and all that, and define physical structures that help to make up the information. But the information itself, what the fuck is it? And what really confuses me is that we may very well live in a world where we don't have free will and that we're just kind of along for the ride. And I can accept that, at least kind of on an intellectual level. But what I don't understand is if it wasn't J.K. Rowling who wrote Harry Potter,
Yeah.
then who the fuck did? And what the fuck did? And if Darth Vader and Harry Potter and Starry, Starry Night and everything else that man creates and takes credit for isn't us, what is it? And I'm not saying it's proof of God. I'm saying it's proof of the unknown. And because we don't know what these things are. So given well, I think people ought to be asking these questions more. And 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 this is where I give a little bit of license to the paint throwers. If Harry Potter, because it has characters and stories, and it's something that it's almost like it takes on a life of its own. There's almost like life there. Some people argue that memes and stories are a form of life. They don't conform to biological life, but they may be a form of life. If that is one form of creativity, and it wasn't us who did it, what did? And so I will give some creative license to the people who throw paint at stuff, because they're not doing it either. That's just an expression. If we don't if we don't create what we create, then people throwing random paint at canvas aren't doing it either. What is the universe trying to convey to us through that? I don't know what it is, but it makes me less critical of art that I don't understand, because
you really brought up, you really hit the nail on the head on that one. I think that's a very um beautiful mind way of thinking about that I truly appreciate. We all have our, conscious objections and our opinions and stuff like that, that, kind of, play out to our everyday lives. But now let me give you a theory. What if our everyday lives is actually the dream that we are living?
yeah,
You know?
could be.
And when we dream is our everyday life. We go to these different dimensions. We get to do these different things, So going to the paint throwers, you know, that is a very that's probably the best argument, the best legitimate argument. And, for somebody to debate you, and not just simply, get on your side with it at all, it turns into a very, beautiful thought process, in my opinion, because I see it as one that has been working very hard on learning my, subconscious and, literally everything that you just kind of mentioned that can go into a whole different, ballpark of things. Um, but whenever we consciously think about something, it's almost like we instantly become a partial judge,
Mhm.
and it's not really fair, you know, because we're not the one that is seeing inside their minds. We're not the one that is reenacting whatever it is they're reenacting. We're not the one that is playing out their part in their life, you know? I think a lot of it comes to clarity as to what it is that you're doing. You take an artist that splats a bunch of different color paints up on a canvas or whatever, and you can, see, whatever these different patterns or whatever, in it, and you can kind of get different expressions. But whenever it's like just black ink, you know, and you're very monotone, that really that you got me thinking there. That really has a whole different level of expression that really makes you think about exactly what exactly are they going through. It almost seems like a crisis, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
you know?
And the I don't think it has to be either or either. Um, I think let's just take something like pronouns, just to throw it out there since you mentioned it. It's in my mind right now. Um, I think it's silly. I'm not a big fan of the whole um, you know, pronoun thing, uh and I believe uh there's probably some victimhood and some people. I think it can be like, on one hand, people are being silly. On the other hand, what is the universe trying to tell us with this? Because if they're not the ones saying it, maybe there's some information in between the words that I'm missing.
I think
And it can be both. It can be both. Like
I
the
think when
either.
it comes to that, are you clay or are you the molder of the clay?
Yeah, I'd have to spend some time on that.
I mean, because it's unfortunate as it is, I mean, it goes into the whole biblical part, the sheep and the shepherd,
Hmm.
you know? Like, what is it that you truly believe to follow? You know, you remember have you ever heard of Cabbage Patch Kids?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Not the whole cartoon Barbie doll Nickelodeon thing or whatever. I'm talking about like actual Cabbage Patch Kids
yeah.
from the
Well, like the
1900s.
oh, okay. So I
Yeah.
mean, I was thinking of the 1980s Cabbage Patch Kids, but
Okay,
um,
okay. Even then, there seemingly have been different generations with them or whatever. They're
mm,
almost like what video gamers would consider an NPC, a non-player character.
yeah, yeah,
They're just going about their programming. But then you got the people like us, the ones that go against our programming, the ones that make and create and, does all this other fun stuff, you know what I'm saying? And then we've tried to figure out how exactly it is that somebody can just go through life just like, hey, okay, cowabunga, dude, whatever. I mean, as much as of a hippie as I really am too, I cannot give into that. How is it
yeah,
that people are able to give into
and
a lot of
living your life might be yeah, living your life might be a form of art, and maybe some people mold clay and form metal. Uh, some people make food, some people make music, some people live their life in perhaps weird ways that I don't understand. And this brings me to the final question I'm going to ask you, and this has been a good segue into it. What is the one thing that people assume about you or don't know about you as either a person or as a builder and creator that you think they get wrong that you wish that they understood better?
Oh my. That's a deep one. um, oh gosh, how to put this? How to put this? How to put this? I guess there's sometimes when it just to put it in, I guess you could say literal sense. There's sometimes when I'm in the middle of a build and I know something needs to be added, or I know, it's just simply not enough. You know what I'm saying? And I sit there and I think about it. And I'm sitting here looking at my project already, and people are coming around me like, dude, it's perfect. It looks great. And I'm like, no, it's missing something. And they don't quite understand what it could be missing. It's simply because they're not in my head, you know, simply because they're not the sole creature that is actually putting the effort into this build. Yet I think if they were a sole creature putting effort into the build, it can lead into way many different things that I didn't think of in the first place. But it's an effort thing. It really is an effort thing, and a lot of people nowadays don't want to put in the effort. They just want to ask the question, and then whether or not they like the answer to the question, they put their own opinion to it. It really doesn't matter what it is that I did. It could be right, it could be wrong, it could be the best thing ever, it could be the worst thing ever. It's really all in the energy that the person puts into it themselves as to what it really comes out to be for everybody else. And I really cannot say that I have a definite answer for that question because it's up to the individual. It's not up to me. I'm the one that is making the reality around me. The ones that want to join my reality, have to choose if it's the right reality for them. Going right on back to our ink thrower here.
Yeah, so you could almost flip that question around and ask the ink thrower, what is it about what you do that you wish people understood? And maybe the ink thrower would say, I want them to know that I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's still important to me. Or I want them to
I'm really
know
glad
that.
that came up. Honestly, I'm glad that actually got brought up because it seems to be a very main focus that we keep going back to because we're looking for something so profound, but yet it almost seems like we've found the most profound thing in something as simple as throwing black ink on a piece of paper.
Yeah. Maybe if there is a God, all he did was throw some black ink on paper, and all the other gods out there are making fun of him.
All the other guys need to be like, "Hey, dude, that looks pretty fucking cool. I want to try that too."
I would have put the dick away from the asshole, but make it stink less. But
I think this conversation kind of gave me a little bit of a different outlook on our ink thrower here. We had mentioned them earlier, and then through, the revolution of this conversation, I mean, this is where people's minds need to be at. They need to be able to absorb and contrast and compare, to themselves. Nobody likes to do that for themselves anymore. They like to do it to everybody else. And when we first started talking about our ink thrower, that is exactly what we did.
yeah,
You know, we threw that shade like this isn't really real or anything like that. But yet within our conversation, we completely justified an ink
throwing ink.
thrower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess if I were to answer that question for myself, what I wish people knew about me is, um, I'm a libertarian. I'm right libertarian. I'm conservative. I'm a classical liberal. I support Trump. I I what I wish people knew about me is that I am judging them and that I don't understand them in many ways. But it's not either or. It's not that that I think I have all the answers. Um, I sure as fuck don't. Um, and I think a lot of people are like that. And the truth is that there's probably people on the other side that are able to say the exact same thing that I'm saying from a different perspective. Um, and then we go live our lives sometimes with our blinders on and just forge ahead, um, being dicks to each other. But I'm not going to change who I am, and I'm still going to judge people. But I'm also listening to them, and maybe we're all better a little bit because of the conversations and the disagreements. So I don't know.
It's all about being open to the experience, and that's where everybody is more closed off to. They're not open to the experience of, hearing somebody else's opinion and it being something that's not their opinion. You know, it, that's honestly, in my opinion, exactly like I said, in my opinion, what is wrong with the world is nobody is willing to open up their mind to what somebody else is living through. Put yourself in their shoes. Me and you, we come from, opposite sides of the United States. Yet our minds are seemingly, right there coalesce with each other. We're able to have that conversation where I'll tell you right now, I can walk down the street and be like, "Hey, what do you think of somebody from California?" And their opinion probably ain't going to be all too nice.
Right.
But then you can walk down the street and be like, "What do you think about somebody from Mississippi?" Oh, what that old fucking redneck down there or something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got to be open to the experience. And I feel like as soon as somebody is willing to just take that chance and actually throw that little bit of ink? Will they be able to actually open their minds up and be able to learn more than what they thought they can actually learn?
Yeah, and you don't have to agree with someone. Like, I'm not going to
Right.
agree with somebody that we should have an open border. I'm sorry, never going to get there. But I'm willing to listen to what you have to say, and maybe some compassion can come out of it.
Right.
But I may also say, fucking feedback, motherfucker, and we need it. And so
Yeah.
maybe things being harsher are good. But it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be, I agree with your position, or I totally disagree with you. It can be, I disagree with you, but I'm willing to listen to what you have to say, and maybe we can meet in the middle, and maybe we can't. You know. Anyway,
I mean, why make enemies out of people you don't even know just because of a disagreement or
yeah,
because your mindset isn't the same? You know, we used to be a nation that knew this, but we simply don't anymore. And it's very unfortunate.
yeah. We expect everyone to bow to our will, and
Yeah.
it's not always a good thing. Sometimes it's a good
As
thing.
humans, we've gotten entitled.
Yeah, I think we have. We've gotten it's life's gotten easy for us in many ways. Um, there's a lot of people out there blaming the sun for their sunburn. Um, Example of that would be, blaming capitalism um, for all the world's ills, and yet people live longer, and third world countries are being elevated, and now we're at a point where AI may someday solve sustainability issues because we're not smart enough to do it in any reasonable time frame. Maybe now we can, and maybe it took all this to get to that point. Doesn't mean that you were right about your crazy environmentalism. Doesn't mean that I was completely right about my love of capitalism and agency. Um, it just means, I don't know. I don't know what it means. We'll see.
I reckon that's just what we figure out what it means as we live the life that we live. You know,
Mhm.
it's not an answer that we're supposed to be truly given. You know, without experience, we'll never know anything. You know, and without having a desire to want to feel whatever it is that we haven't felt yet or see what it is that we haven't seen yet, that discovery would be jaded at the point, if we just simply, didn't care, you know? We gotta have care in it is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that are the angriest right now, they're not builders.
Mhm.
They're not creators. Um, they're something else, and um, we need more. We need more people. We need more artists, and I don't mean art. I'm gonna air quote here art. I don't mean ink throwers. Um, we need more. Whether you're an ink thrower or whether you're building a Ferrari or making an omelet, we need more people who are purposeful in life and want to build something, and
Exactly.
don't expect somebody else to do it for them. There's a lot of people out there that um, that would love to build amazing things with your money and your effort. Um, we need more people who are willing to put in the work, get the skin knuckles, um, get uh, you know, deal with the hard realities of having to maintain your equipment, and deal with the hard realities of working through problems when uh, it's standing in your way. And we have too many people right now that, as you said, we feel entitled. Um, we're blaming the sun for our sunburn, and what we need to do is get out of the fucking sun, put on some sunblock, and and get to work. Anyway,
Exactly.
so what's next on your list of things to build? What are you working on now?
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, right now, I think I'm in a little bit of a transitional phase. Like I still got the four-wheeler that I'm still getting done. Um, right now with the auto shop that I've been working at, we just had to close up shop and we're going to be reopening again real soon. We just had to we're having to move. Is what it is. And the building that we're going to be moving into isn't exactly fully built yet, so we're about to be a little bit off for a little while. Uh, and so yeah, honestly, I'm in a real transitional phase with everything. I really am trying to start getting more focused on my fabrication work and especially getting TIG welding started because I really need to be TIG welding. That's where the money's at.
Mm. And as far as your business, your Designs by Red Raven, um, do you have stuff out there that people can buy right now, or are you like do you have an Etsy store or anything like that, or
Well, as much as I really tried to break into all that, I really don't have just a bulk of anything to buy, but anybody can get a hold of me at any time, generally give me an idea of what it is that they're wanting. And excuse me, if it's in my wheelhouse, definitely I usually give somebody like a 2 to 3 week turnaround time and I'm able to have something created.
so if someone had like an idea, they're like, "Hey, I saw Bloopy. I've got my own idea. This is what it looks like in my head." What would they reach out to you on your Instagram page or TikTok, Designs by Red Raven, and just throw it at you and see if it sticks?
Usually at, Instagram or Facebook, is where I'm usually predominantly at, but yeah, actually, I've gotten several, all kinds of different requests to do all kinds of different things that a lot of people just simply don't or won't do. Um, it's usually items, I guess, going back to our word consumable, item or whatever, like a fire pit, um, or like, a pipe or something like that, that was, made, a shelf, something. Usually I like to try to keep myself open to the most creative, um, builds. I don't have, just a line of booking or anything like that. I do a lot of local service work as well, so I do keep myself busy. But whenever I do get those real custom projects, are like, hey, I want this, but with this and this and this, and I'll be like, oh yeah, yeah, I could do that. Let's do it.
So there you have it. If anyone listening to this, looking at Eric's designs, whether it's the grill or um, saw something in his mods or the wood turning or the bloopy, reach out to him. Designs by Red Raven on Instagram, and we'll put this in the comments down here after we get the video published. And reach out to him, and if you've got an idea and maybe some contract work, throw it his way, and maybe gets enough of that, he can buy that 100 acres and build his community. So, Erik, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to show your builds, allow us to get inside your head, allow me to get inside my head a little bit and get lost in it, and share some ideas with you, and maybe kind of dig at the essential nature of what makes people who are creative and build things, what drives them. And maybe some of the people out there listening that thought that you weren't creative or you weren't one of those builders, maybe this has sparked a little something in you so that you're like, maybe maybe I'm an ink thrower, but maybe there's something to my ink throwing Maybe I want to learn to build something, and maybe I need to stop making excuses, and maybe I just need to start doing it. So all of that just from a conversation with Erik Pennington, uh, Tennessee born, Mississippi bred. Thank you, Erik.